Are you in your early days of advertising online and want this to be a really successful and profitable experience? Of course you do. So let's talk about a couple of things that you can do to make this be a much more successful and profitable experience for you. All right. So the thing I'm not going to do here is I'm not going to talk about how to make a specific ad profitable. That's a separate broadcast. We'll have that conversation at some point in the future. What I want to do right now is I want to talk about overall account management and principles around that. Okay? So, first one, there's a thing called a pixel. You need to do what's called validating your pixel. Now, it's different based on whether you're on Facebook or Pinterest or YouTube or Google. Well, YouTube and Google is the same, but it's different. And so you're going to want to Google that to figure out exactly how to do it. What ends up happening is that they give you an option of having like a Chrome plugin that enables you to be able to see if the pixel is properly installed on your site. I strongly suggest that you do exactly that. Make sure that pixel is working, because that pixel, at least for the moment, controls everything about your ad. Now, next is give your ad some budget. So many people are so scared of advertising that what they want to do is they want to spend $1 a day or something like that. You can do that. The problem is, if you do that, you're going to get almost no traffic to it. You don't do what's called training the algorithm. So the algorithm needs to be trained. What it does is it says, okay, here's this ad that this person is running. I'm going to show this ad to this group of people who they defined in their targeting of that ad. And I'm going to be trying to achieve this conversion objective that they set. More on that in a minute. Okay, in order to do that, I have to show that ad to multiple thousand people to see how many people are going to, who is actually going to achieve that conversion objective. That's great. The problem is, if you're only spending $1 a day, it's going to take quite a bit of time to get to the point where they're not just throwing that ad up against the wall to see what sticks. They need data to be able to see what is really working, to really be able to see, when I show this ad to this type of person, they're the people who tend to click. The less you spend on your ad, the longer it's going to take for that to get established. And the problem is that you become impatient during that period of time and you end up canceling the ad. And so what ends up happening is you never actually train the algorithm. This is the equivalent of taking a kid, putting them in a soccer league, and pulling them in the first game because they're not the star and scoring five goals. It just doesn't work that way. It takes some time to train that kid. It takes some time to train the algorithm so that it knows who to show that ad to. You're going to have to spend money to do that. I actually recommend you spend, budget $300, spend $10 a day so they can get trained and be able to figure it out. Now, while we're on that subject, you should be checking your data daily. Here's the reason you do this. Every once in a while, it is possible to make a mistake that will spend a whole lot of money very quickly. And so, set it up, go to bed, get up in the morning, check it, make sure everything's going okay. But as you do that, as you're checking it, don't freak out. Give your ads some time. It's going to take some time to get some traffic for that algorithm to get trained. It's just the way that computers work and the algorithms work. All right. So you're spending some money, you're giving it some time, and what will end up happening is about a month after you start running an ad, one day you're going to get an email from an ad rep who's going to say, hey, I've got some ideas on how you can improve your ad. Take their call. Set up an appointment with them and take their call. But it's very important for you to remember this. The ad reps don't work for you. They work for the company. Their job is to get you to spend a lot of money. Now, ideally, this works out really well if in the process of you spending a lot of money, you make a lot of money, then everyone's interests are aligned. But if it comes down to a question of whose interests they're focusing on, they don't work for you. They work for the people you're giving money to. And remember that many of these ad reps are somebody who just came out of college 2 weeks ago and have been through a basic training. And maybe were in a staff meeting last Monday where they heard somebody say, hey, one of my clients tried this and it worked great. And so now they're telling every single person they talk to, hey, you should try this. It works great. When in reality, they may not know anything about whether that original client, what their objectives were, what they were trying to do, what kind of client they are, whether that applies in your space or not, all those kinds of things like that. And so you should make sure that you actually look at the recommendations they give you with some common sense and test them. Don't just plow all of your money into whatever that new strategy is that ad rep recommended to you, because again, they don't work for you. All right. But in spite of that, please make friends with them anyway, because you may need them to go to bat for you someday when your account gets shut down. And so don't have an adversarial relationship with them. Just realize you're the boss. You're the one who controls the purse strings. And so make decisions appropriately and recognize who has incentives to do what. All right. And just remember, you actually get what's an official ad rep when you spend a lot of money. I can't tell you what a lot is because it changes and it all depends. And eventually, if you spend a lot of money with an advertiser, you're going to get a call from somebody saying, hey, I'm your ad rep and I'd like to work with you. That person, once you start spending money, that's a person you want to get to know. That's a person you're going to want to have getting in and looking at your accounts. That's a person that's possibly going to go to bat for you someday when your account gets shut down, because I can virtually guarantee someday your account will get shut down and you're going to want to know that person. Okay, here's the next one. One of the things that oftentimes happens when you're just starting to run ads is that your ads either fail miserably or you get lucky and you get an ad that's working. When that happens, don't foul it up. I was talking to somebody just yesterday who had just gotten off their first call with the company's ad rep, and they have an ad that's bringing in $2 for every dollar they spend in advertising. That's wonderful. And so the first thing the ad rep said is, hey, you ought to change this and you ought to change this. And right now you're using a conversion objective. You really ought to turn it into a traffic objective, and you ought to change the targeting to this, and you ought to do all these things. And the first thing I said was, stop. You've got an ad that's giving you back $2 for every dollar you spend on it. Don't make any changes to that ad. Maybe do another version of that ad and change the targeting and change it to a traffic campaign and change all these things, but don't foul up your ad that's working. You got lucky in this particular case. Don't foul up your luck. And so part of your job as an advertiser is to make sure that you allow your ads that are successful to run and that you keep putting more and more money into the ads that are working for you. And so this is key. Spend on your winners. Not long ago, in a period of about an hour, I talked to 3 different people who all had incredibly successful ad campaigns and were spending like $1,000 a month on them. And it's like one of them was spending $1,000 a month and getting $17,000 in sales from that $1,000 they were spending a month. And the first thing I said was, why are you not spending $10,000 or $100,000 on this campaign? And the answer was, well, I don't know. I just thought $1,000 was a lot of money to spend on ads. And it's like, hey, ignore how much you're spending on ads. The only thing that matters is what is your return on ad spend. So when I spend $1, do I get back 50 cents? That's an ad that's not working. Do I get back $1? That's an ad that's break even. Do I get back more than $1? Okay, anytime you're getting back more than $1 for every dollar you spend, especially if you're getting back $2 or more for every dollar that you spend, you should be working on figuring out how fast you can spend more money and start plowing more and more money into that ad so that you're letting your winners run. And that's a really, really important concept. Basically, if you're bringing in $2 for every dollar you're spending in advertising, the biggest question is, how fast can you get to the point where you're spending $1 million a month? $1 million? There's no way I could spend $1 million. Well, what if that ad was bringing in $2 million? Could you spend $1 million if your ad was bringing in $2 million? I hope, and knowing you, because you're smart enough to pay attention to me, and I didn't mean that with pride, but if you're smart enough to be paying attention to me, you're smart enough to recognize if you're bringing in 2 million, if you're spending $1 million to get there, that's a good thing. Don't run your advertising budget based on a number, run it based upon how profitable it is. All right, here's another key thing that a lot of people make a mistake when they're just getting started, and that is your conversion objective runs everything. So if you are telling the ad engine that you want traffic, they're going to go out and find people who will click on your ad. If you're telling them that you want conversion defined as a person who opts in, they're going to go find people who are willing to opt in. If you define conversion as made a sale, they're going to go find people who will actually buy from you. And I bet you can't guess which conversion objective I like the best. Now, the problem is when you just get started, they won't let you run a conversion objective on people that buy from you because you haven't got any data. You have to start with like a traffic campaign to start sending some traffic to that. And then once you start getting conversions, then you can turn that conversion objective into sales. But the problem is that there are so many people who are running traffic campaigns who never get around to changing it into a sales conversion campaign. And they wonder why they keep getting all this traffic that doesn't buy. Algorithms are designed to solve a certain problem. That problem is defined as the objective you give it. If you give the objective, I want traffic, or I want video views, or I want conversions defined as opt-ins, or I want conversions defined as sales, it's going to go get you whatever you just defined. And so make sure you're defining that objective as what you really want it to be, because whatever you set for that objective is what the algorithm is going to give you. And algorithms don't have common sense. The algorithm doesn't sit back and say, oh, I'm sending a bunch of traffic to this person, but nobody's buying. The algorithm doesn't think that thought. You have to think that thought. You have to give it the right objectives. So while we're on the subject of the algorithm, you need to learn about the algorithm, how it works, what's required to teach it, what doesn't work, all those kinds of things. And a lot of it is guessing because nobody tells you what the algorithm really does. In fact, I'm convinced that in many cases, no one actually, literally nobody knows what the algorithm actually does. In fact, we're getting to the point now where they're actually allowing algorithms to run free, which means that there's nobody who's told the algorithm what to do. The algorithm itself is feeding itself with data. And so that's a potentially dangerous situation in the world, but that's the world that we live in. And so you need to come to understand the algorithm, and then you need to start training the algorithm, giving it right spending, giving it right conversion objectives, so the algorithm starts doing what it is that you want. Final thing, you need to read their terms of service. If they say we don't allow advertising for this kind of product and you sell that kind of product, you don't want to run advertising with them because you're eventually going to get shut down. If they say that they don't want ads, and besides their terms of service, they hint things like, for example, Facebook wants positive happening on their channel. And so it's really tough to get ads to get approved or to run long term. They're negatively oriented. Facebook doesn't allow you to be able to advertise on a certain medical condition. So you can't say, got diabetes? Can't do that. That's going to get turned down. You can't do things like just got divorced. Can't do that. That's going to get turned down. You need to come to understand what it is that they do. And the way to learn that is not by throwing ads up against the wall and see what sticks. Learn it so that you don't get a reputation in the algorithm as being somebody who keeps getting things turned off. Play well with it, and it will play well with you. So there are some theories about advertising. If you do these things, it will help you considerably to get your advertising successful and profitable. So what are you struggling with advertising? And don't just say, I can't get it to be profitable. That won't help me. Tell me what kinds of things that may help me to be able to produce other content in the future that'll help you more specifically. Let me know in the comments whether this has been helpful and what would be helpful for you more in the future. This is Don Crowther saying, just go do this stuff.